China has identified the cause of the mysterious pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan city, and it's from the same family that caused the deadly SARS epidemic 17 years ago. It's a new type of coronavirus.
The outbreak of mystery pneumonia cases in Wuhan began last month, and on Thursday, Chinese researchers said investigations showed a new type of coronavirus. The report added that while it takes several weeks to identify the genetic sequence of the virus, it will take years to develop a vaccine or drugs to cure the disease. Wuhan authorities said on Sunday there were 59 cases of infections, with 7 patients seriously ill. There have been no deaths. Chinese authorities have also said arrangements are being made for disinfection, monitoring, and prevention.
Unwelcome but expected, the coronavirus has hit the UK. The official line is not to panic, but this hasn't stopped face masks running out in some places across the UK. The world is still learning about this new coronavirus, which is rapidly spreading by the day. With 2 cases now in the UK, the race is on to work out who's had contact with the infected patient.
A woman in her 70s has become the first person with coronavirus to die in the UK. The number of people infected in the UK has jumped again to 116.
14 more people across Britain have died after testing positive for coronavirus. It brings the total number of deaths here in the UK so far to 35.
There are 492,603 cases of coronavirus.
The Health Secretary for England, Matt Hancock, has warned that the measures the government would take to combat the coronavirus will disrupt the ordinary lives of almost everybody in the country.
The time has now come for us all to do more. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
I'm outside Aquinas College in Stockport, one of the many places of education that was forced to close to try and prevent the spread of coronavirus. By the 20th of March, all schools, colleges and universities were asked to shut their doors. This meant they had to learn a new way to continue studies safely and productively. Learning moved predominantly online, and video calls are something we're all familiar with. But I want to find out how productive they are for learning, what the downsides are, and whether it's something we could continue when the world goes back to normal.
Hello.
How are you doing? You alright?
I'm alright, how are you?
I'm good, yeah, I'm alright.
Video call apps skyrocketed in 2020, with many people now familiar with Zoom, which was the most popular free app on the Apple Store in March and has handled online meetings of 600 participants. Microsoft's version, Skype, saw a 70% rise in user growth in March. I got in contact with university course leader and lecturer of photography at Ravensbourne, Geraint Cunnick, to find out how moving online has changed the way he teaches.
Because of the way that Ravensbourne positions itself as a kind of more of an online tech-savvy university, I think it's been a lot easier than a lot of other universities. I think some places have really struggled with the technology and struggled with transferring some of the lesson content online.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it hasn't really affected me too much. It's actually given me an opportunity to try out some new ideas. I was able to try different live briefs, working with clients in different ways. But my background is technology driven. I'm quite tech savvy, so it's not been such a big jump for me. I'm the chair of the education committee, so I talk to a lot of course leaders from other universities. And, obviously there's different responses to your question. Some people really struggle because they like the exchange. And that's kind of one of the reasons why people become lecturers, is what they call the exchange, is that we learn as much from students as you would learn from us as academics. Certainly some people have talked about the difficulty of teaching something practical online. And I think that photography is somewhere in between. It's not as difficult as, say, dance or performance or even fine art. Some people have talked about difficulty in dealing with large groups, and so there's been a kind of new approach to online teaching across the sector where groups are much smaller, so the calls are shorter, the material is more intense. The general wisdom is that students generally online have a much shorter attention span.
Yeah.
And it may be pre-recorded, so people don't necessarily have to listen to someone talking for 20 minutes, but it's something that you can do in your own time. And that's a massive shift in the way people are learning at the moment in universities. It may well be something that, you miss not being in the classroom. You may quite like the flexibility of not having to travel across London.
You don't have to travel in anymore. You can just do it from wherever you are. And I was able to go home and still have this call with you rather than having to meet you in uni. There's a lot of positives being able to get there. And
you look at our attendance statistics, attendance of people coming on to scheduled Zoom calls is really, really high.
Do you think with the attendance that because people can turn off their screens and you can't physically see if they're there or not, do you always trust the attendance that they are actually there? Obviously with your lectures people are because you're very interested. But with other lectures, do you feel that people are actually attending, or whether it's become easier for people to sort of pretend they're attending as if they could go into uni, scan their card and then leave again without anyone noticing?
I think that's a very good point. You have to constantly scan your screen and try and ask questions to specific people if you can.
Yeah. So do you think that students have actually been working better since it's all moved online and putting more work into what they're doing, and it's so easy for them to just give you a call or give you a message, or to get up 10 minutes before a lecture, turn off their camera and watch it? In terms of the work they are producing, do you think it's a better quality and more effort has gone into it because they're at every lecture and you're there whenever we need you, rather than having to actually come into the building all the time?
Looking at last year's third year, the work, because they went into lockdown after having 6 months of physical campus teaching, it was a little bit like you ran up a hill and you were coming down the hill now, and it was really easy. That back end had happened. So people did focus more on their study. When we started the academic year this year, it's the other way around. So we're starting lockdown, and particularly for the first year students, being taught key skills. So I think it'll be interesting to see when this current first year move into year 3 in 2 years' time. Then we'll see if there's been a real hit in their skill base.
Yeah. So you think if we go back to normal, we'll still use online more than we would have done before lockdowns?
And let's face it, I don't think things are ever going to be the same again. I think the idea of, physically being back onto campus 24/7, that's not going to happen anymore. I think there's always going to be this element of online from now on. It may be that by having stuff that's a little bit more flexible, or some online, some on campus, it helps the university because it then becomes a bit more innovative. If you're a student, would you still want to travel across London for a 2-hour lecture?
Yeah.
And that's it for the rest of your day? It sort of starts to feel, doesn't feel right after what we've been through now over the last kind of 9 months. It's thinking, well, what can we learn from this? Can we mix it? Can we do some things are online because they're better online, and some things physically because they're better physically?
It's made us change and realise, whereas before we probably wouldn't have tried it because there was no need to try really online learning. Especially with Brexit and everything coming up, it will mean that people can continue to study from anywhere.
So some people have enjoyed moving online as it can allow for more freedom to work in your own time, and lockdown has forced us to quickly develop new ways of teaching and learning that before we wouldn't have tried, giving us new methods we can now take forward into the future. In order to gain further insight into the topic of learning online, I decided to speak to Tim Wheeler. As a headmaster, he was in charge of organising staff when learning moved online and was able to speak about how they found it. Tim has been a teacher for his whole working life, so has seen a lot of changes in education and can bring a different point of view. Also, as he's my father, I am allowed to interview him in person.
So as someone who is arranging all the teachers and all the staff, how as a group did you all find the transition into moving from working in a building to then moving it all online?
Well, initially it was very difficult because we don't really run with a lot of tech normally. But once we'd established the platform we wanted, we found it worked very well. As long as the tech held up and the Wi-Fi was good enough. There's a limit to how much you can do online, of course. It's not the same as in-person learning. But once we got used to it, it was pretty good.
What were the students' responses to it? Did they enjoy it?
Did they learn as much as they would have done before?
I think once they got used to it, it was pretty good, but it varied from student to student. I think those who needed more support found it more difficult. Those points where, you're stuck on a piece of work and the teacher's normally just wandering around the room and suddenly you're not there. And even though we had support systems in place, it's not as immediate and instant. And I think some people like the interaction with other students. They like kind of encouragement from their teachers. And also the whole thing about being stuck in your bedroom or your dining room, it's a pretty dull environment. We had to encourage them to, look, take some time out, do some exercise. You don't have to do all the work that's out there. And once they got used to shaking their day up and gave them a bit more structure, I think they got on with it pretty well. For a short term, it was fine. It wouldn't work forever.
So with the students that needed that extra support, were you able to give them the same support that they would have got?
Yeah, well, it's not even just those. It's any kind of student who likes that kind of constant nudge and encouragement. So those whose attention might wander, those who are just a little bit insecure. But we did set up support systems for them, and once we got used to it, it was better. But it's not the same. That sense of, can I just ask you this? Those instant moments, you can't replicate that.
What about the staff? When you were trying to organise them and they were giving you feedback about what was going right and wrong, what was their take on it? What was their feedback about how it was going for them?
Well, initially they all hated it because they had to learn new things, and of course inevitably it doesn't work first time and it takes you a long time to learn new tech. But once they got the hang of it, they got used to it. We gave them a lot of support, kind of gave them confidence that they could do it. If you're not careful, you're just there, available all the time. So once we got some sort of parameters worked out, look, take a break, share the workload. It's still harder than regular teaching, I would say. It's very, very tiring. I mean, every time we got to holiday breaks, everyone was just exhausted in a way I've never seen before. And I remember doing some sessions and, you might sit there for half an hour and nobody connects in, so they don't need it. But that's half an hour you've got to be sat in front of your screen. You can't really do much else. The teachers instinctively want to support people, so they tend to do too much.
So did you actually find any benefits from it? Was there anything you can do online that you couldn't have done before that you perhaps wouldn't have even tried because you didn't need to and now you needed to? It's actually taught you some stuff about this actually is a better way of educating people.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff we'll keep doing. I mean, just the whole online delivery itself, because it's either recorded or could be recorded, has the benefit they can come back to it. You can pause a lesson if it's not working out for you and go back. So I don't have to say to you, well, what did you say there? Because you can just wind it back for yourself and take your time, or you can take a break. Have I understood that? So there are definitely benefits in that. The biggest thing we found was with the kind of interactive marking in a way that you couldn't normally do in a classroom. You put a task online, they start working online and you're commenting on it and feeding back all along. So the quality of marking was far superior to what you could do normally, because you're not having to sort of wait until it's handed in. You continue working on it. They seem to read the comments much better online as well. Normally you give a piece of work back and they may or may not read it because they had to respond to it there and then. It was a lot better. So the quality of work that was coming in. And that's the other great thing, because I can go along, any of us can go in and see any of it at any point. Also, I found it very good because I could go in and say, well, hey, Jared, that was a great piece of work, and put a message for you straight away. So that instant feedback was amazing. Partly because teachers instinctively, of course, they're busy. They may not be that young, they may not want to learn how the tech works, they just had to. So it's really kind of supercharged the introduction of this kind of thing. And working alongside ordinary teaching, it's a massive leap forward, I think. So yeah, there's a lot we'll still use to the benefit of everybody.
You've definitely learned stuff from this, and there's stuff that you can bring forward when the world does go back to normal. We can start bringing students back in.
We've heard from two teachers, but as a student who lives in a house with other students, I'm well aware of the other point of view. Kalila finished her third year of uni in lockdown during 2020, and after 2.5 years of studying on campus, I want to see how she found the change.
So obviously you finished third year online. How was it doing a couple of years in uni and having your first half of your third year in uni and then moving online?
It was very different, especially the first and second year. We had a lot of group collaborative projects where we worked in teams. There was like people in my class whose FMPs I didn't even see because we weren't in the classroom together.
What were the biggest differences from working in uni and on campus to then moving it all online and having to do it all from home?
I think you don't get the same interaction with the teacher. There were little things that I'd quickly ask my tutor to show me how to do on my laptop. And when they're not there trying to explain to someone something that's going wrong, they can't always do it online. But in some ways it was quite good because I didn't have to travel in and I didn't get the anxiety of going into a lecture. I could kind of do it from wherever was comfortable. If I wanted to be in bed in my pyjamas, I could be.
Yeah. So when you say you could be in bed in your pyjamas, do you think your attendance was better because you were able to just wake up and go straight into the lecture?
Personally, I've never worked very well at home. So whenever I do projects, I'd always struggle to do work at home, and I'd always work better if I went into uni and worked in the library, because there's something about going into university and like being in the working space. I think I attended maybe more lectures than I would have done had they have been in person, but I don't know if the same kind of level of engagement was there. Like you could kind of turn your camera off, pop to the toilet, and your tutor wouldn't even know.
Do you find being in uni easier then than being on a camera? Which is easier to learn from, and what do you learn more from and find easier as a way of life when you're trying to juggle it with jobs and doing your other work and other stuff you're doing with your life? Which is easier as a whole?
I still think going into uni, because you're just in that environment. And I think as well, you just don't meet people and network in the same way. You just miss that whole element of learning from other people.
Do you find it easier to email a tutor once you've already been online with them to then just carry it on afterward in email?
Yeah, I think from that perspective it was easier. Because when we had in-person lectures, like when we were going into university, sometimes I'd email my tutors and the reply could take a week or maybe more. But I think when you're online and you've just been talking to them and they're online as well, I'd get like much quicker responses, definitely.
So you were saying about networking. Is it just networking, or is there also a friendship and a social aspect to uni that you miss through working online?
Most people go to uni because they do a degree and they want to learn how to do something and enter a career. But I did also go to make friends and to socialise and live away from home. And part of that experience was taken away when everything went online.
Do you think that has anything to do with your anxiety, which then affects the way you work and how you feel at home? Not seeing other people, you're not feeding off them, you're not getting the same energy. The way it affects your mental health and your well-being, does that then go on to affect your learning?
Yeah, I didn't feel as motivated. And I wasn't inspired because I wasn't seeing other people's work. Seeing other people working really hard and getting really good results makes you want to do that. It almost gives you an excuse to be lazy because you think that everybody else is also having a day off or not doing anything. And also there were parts of the brief where I'd get stuck and I'd just say to someone at uni, can I just see your bit? Which online, it's not quite the same. I wouldn't grab someone for 2 minutes in the same way.
When the world all goes back to normal, can we then carry on learning solely online or using it a little bit? Or do you think we just need to go completely back to how we were and just forget this ever happened?
It's hard to say because I think so many different people have lots of different learning styles. If you have autism or you're dyslexic, you just can't satisfy all of them online. For the majority of people, they need to be able to ask questions real time. I need someone to come to my laptop and show me what to do. That just didn't work the same online. I think it would be useful if some lectures were online, like little quick videos, then you can easily access them. So I think we should adopt some aspects of that.
We've all been forced to learn quickly during these difficult times, in a way education has never seen before. There is no doubt that learning has changed for everybody, with technology playing a significant part in this. As for permanent changes to the way in which we learn, which is something everybody seems to anticipate, only time will tell. But for now, this is learning in lockdown.